It is 13 minutes to 9. Oxford University Press is telling us today that 2/3 of parents and others looking after preschool children think that smartphones are good for their development. That is alongside launching their own app, which is called Little Oxford. Helen Freeman, Director of Early Childhood and Home Education at Oxford University Press, is with us in the studio. And Sonia Livingston, who's Professor of Social Psychology at the London School of Economics, joins us on the line. Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Professor Livingston, first of all, what do you think of the basic principle of smartphones being used by 3 to 5-year-olds?
Well, at the moment, the latest guidance that we have in this country, which I think comes from the Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health, says use the phones with care, with caution, keeping an eye on making sure that it really is beneficial for children and not being overused. And I think the really key thing there is keeping a balance so that children are active, physical, interactive, doing things that they want to do in the world, and then the smartphone is increasingly finding its place in that. But there's a lot that research has yet to discover about both the immediate and the long-term effects.
So, as things stand, as an expert in social psychology, you don't have a problem with seeing a smartphone in the hands of a 3-year-old?
Oh, I would always want to ask questions. So I think in the hands of a 3-year-old, there are lots of reasons. We often see it in cafes because our public spaces are rather unfriendly to parents and small children, and parents are keen to keep them quiet because we don't look at them very favourably. I think if the content on the phone, and what really matters is what's on the phone and what the child is doing with the phone, if that's been established as educational or social or entertaining in some way with some kind of independent standards, that's also fine. But we want to look at the whole balance of a child's life and all the other things they're doing, and the reasons, how we're kind of monitoring what are the consequences of using the phone and for what purposes.
Helen Freeman, what's in your app?
So our app is built around the early years foundation stage, which is all of the subjects that preschoolers are meant to be practicing and developing their skills as they move into starting school. So it covers things like literacy, communication and language, maths.
See, a sort of digital flashcard type of thing?
Yeah, and we've also taken things that perhaps traditionally would have been in workbook form, where a child might use stickers or make a mark or draw around a letter. We've taken things like that and tried to use digital to replicate that. So where a child might draw an S in a sand tray, on an app, on a tablet, they can actually do that with their fingers. So they're still practicing some of these skills.
And it would be in the hands of the child, not the parents who are holding it in front of the child's face.
So yes, the child's using the app, but it's something that we certainly recommend should be a shared experience. So it should be something that is supervised so that the adult is with the learner and they're creating opportunities for interaction, acknowledging maybe the activity that the child's just done and being able to create those opportunities to talk about what they're doing.
It's less likely, isn't it? Isn't it much more likely that, as Sonia was describing, it's you're queuing for the coffee or waiting in a line somewhere else, and it's a way to keep your child occupied. And if it's in the child's hands, actually the child can access any other app that's on that phone.
So it is designed for it to be in the child's hands, but there's lots of safety measures in there. So there's no in-app purchasing, the whole design and experience. So it can be used independently, but we would recommend that it is something that the parent engages with. And as Sonia was saying, it's also thinking for the parent to think, what's the child doing on that particular device.
But Professor Livingston, if it's going to be a shared experience, then wouldn't you recommend it being a sand tray or a pen and paper or whatever it is, using more of your motor skills, absorbing more of your environment than simply looking at and tapping on a phone screen?
I think that's the real challenge, actually, for designing digital devices for small children. Exactly. So there can be guidance to the parent, in the notes that accompany the app, but honestly, that those are not always read. And so the questions in my mind are really not only what the child is learning, but how the child is learning, and is the learning interactive? Is it does it involve a kind of interaction between the parent and the child, or a sibling and the child? And is it really child paced and kind of responsive to what they know or don't know at different points? And I'm a little worried. I haven't seen this particular app, so I won't comment. But the App Store and Google Play, there are so many apps available that are not regulated and not tested and make claims about being educational that actually, kind of gamify learning and put pressure on children and parents to almost compete with themselves to learn. So I think the how of learning is actually really difficult with a smartphone, which is a kind of, a mesmerising object as it's designed.
Is there anything, Helen Freeman, that's built into your app that ensures it's a shared experience, elements that only an adult can do?
So there are some interactive elements. It uses augmented reality. So when there's a particular activity, there's a kind of magic button that a child can press that brings to life some of the things they've created, whether it's colouring or artworks, and that can bring it into their space. And there's lots of opportunities to take photographs that are stored locally on that adult's phone. They're not shared, they're not sent out into the internet. But those interactions we've developed with an early years specialist, so we're really mindful of what the child gets from that, but also thinking about the adult-child learning opportunities.
Helen Freeman and Professor Sonia Livingston, thank you both.
The time now is 6 minutes to 9.